Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. This week, I am privileged to have Mike Stewart of Anchor Networks on. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah, so we just did a pivot. Instead of talking about AI again, we're going to talk about more. And again, this is not to downplay that we shouldn't talk about AI. It's here, but you spiked my interest when you said, I've done a lot of episodes on AI. So let's talk about MSP maturity and governance. You brought it up. I think we can incorporate a little AI into the conversation because it's always fun to share AI bits. Mike, you have the assured status with the GTIA Cybersecurity Trust Mark, and I believe you're getting close to needing to be reassessed. What's changed? You and I have been talking about maturity and governance for the better part of 3 years and been participating on tactical and technical safeguards since 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
It's taken us a long time to get to what we could when we can use the word maturity.
It definitely has. And to be honest, I mean, I sit in on a lot of calls and all different types of MSPs and hearing from like the smaller MSPs, get jealous sometimes, honestly, because it's a lot easier when you're a smaller MSP to get things going, get the buy-in from a smaller amount of employees and not struggle with a lot of the things that I seem to be struggling with right now, as far as governance and ownership. Just because it's not just me that's involved with security now.
I was gonna do a workshop. I'm still doing a workshop, but I was going to have the workshop title called Ticket to Trust, kind of play on the Ticket to Ride game. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about, and maybe this plays into what you're thinking. So when you think about a level 1 help desk technician has a ticket in front of them, and they're like, man, I just need like 20 more minutes and I can solve for this. And then that client gets hit with ransomware. And if you think about maturity and governance, and you can tell me I'm crazy, but like if leadership had all the way down to the level 1 tech established a model that says, we trust you to make the right decision. We've given you the tools to be strategic and quantitative and qualitative analysis on what you're dealing with. And we've put the right pathways or escalation paths in place where when you choose to escalate something that you're not comfortable with, or, the if you see something, say something that the airports always say, is to look up at, does leadership support that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I think the leadership side of it supports it the most. It's the buy-in from everyone else.
Sure.
I mean, I think even what you said there with the level 1 support technician, having all of the pieces and knowing which routes to go, what we put in place. Even at that point, it's hard. We're an MSP of 35 employees, and when we put in new security measures or we put in new things for our clients, we try to communicate it all the way down, but either they just don't remember it or they may not actually get the communication. So whether it is like we need to make sure we're authenticating each client employee before we start working a support ticket, how are we making sure that's happening every time?
Yeah, I think there's probably some merit to the message getting missed, but I think there's a bigger challenge. I think you saw it as you were going through the trust mark, recognizing that so much of what's in there was tied to knowing what somebody's job role is, understanding the responsibilities that they have, and making sure that they are available to ask questions to. And then the other piece that we see that goes hand in hand with that is, what does the security skills and awareness training look like? I would argue, and correct me here, but like when we first started talking, if you had a program in place, a lot of your education was probably tied to once a year.
It was. Yep. Even some.
What does that look like now?
It It's more regular. I think it's the conversations. We still have our annual, cyber training that we go through with the platform we use, and that's okay. But even down to like the simulated phishing campaigns, we were doing them once a year, maybe once a quarter. I'm going off every 2 weeks now, and getting rid of the obvious easy ones and making them actually think about it. And I still see people clicking through. Or they'll claim they're testing it, but clicking on stuff that they know they shouldn't have. And it's without constantly talking about it, it's never going to stick.
No, it's funny. Bosteron did a research study that was to counter that phishing simulation and security awareness training doesn't work, and they found in the study that if you put things in the right places, it definitely does. I don't want to give away the whole report, but one of the things that was kind of funny is they pointed to, if your security awareness training happens on January 1 and you don't do any training for the rest of the year, at like 3 months, you're probably in the 55% likelihood to click after having that one training. But what was interesting, when you get to day 360, your probability was 97% likely to click on a phishing simulation or click the link, regardless of whether or not it was pretend. You were just likely to click on the link, and that was for everybody. It wasn't like they weren't saying like, "Hey, you figured out it was a phishing simulation." No, they were saying like, if there's a link and it's suspicious, there's a 97% probability that you will click on it, even if it's not a simulation.
Yeah.
So that training matters, right? And so I think that's where, to your point about, if they didn't get the communication, it's also the other piece that I've been finding is, what did that employee have from a buy-in to what it is that you're implementing?
At our size, not much. The service desk techs really don't have that much say in it, and it is because, one, they're working tickets. So for us to pull everyone to talk through what are we going to implement, how are we going to do this, it's just not realistic. So the buy-in piece, I think, is a huge problem we have as a larger, more mature MSP. It is almost dictating down to a lot of a good amount of the employees that this is what we're going to do, and so often we fail to explain the why behind it.
Sure.
And then they just roll their eyes at it, go with it, and until they get caught doing something that they shouldn't be, they don't worry about it.
Is that a magnitude of distribution though? Like, where if the distribution path for I think about like back in the day when you had physical newspapers, the kid that wants to make more money, so he adds another route to what he's got covered, and so of course he makes more money. But at some point, he's getting to the place where he can no longer do this with a bicycle. He now needs a car. I would argue that in an organization that's more than 10 employees and leading up to 35 employees, what does the breakdown look like when I get down to that pod of 3 or 4? Like, this is the 3 level ones, they escalate up to whatever it is, and it's like, hey, it's Thursday, we're having our tailgate safety session, it's going to be 15 minutes. Hey, there were 2 policies that came across your desk, maybe you didn't read it, here's the high level, do you have any questions? Because I think it's repetition and that constant reminder that, hey, we're not putting this stuff in place because we don't want you to do your job. We're putting this stuff in place so that you still have a job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is a great idea of how to do it, is break it down into pods of having those conversations, because in the past we've tried to do it where when are we going to have everyone, an all company meeting where we can relay some of the changes that have happened, and then hope that with everything else we're throwing at them that they're going to hear it. So there is a struggle even to that point, because it's the game of telephone. Like, we're passing information down to the managers who should be passing that information down to their group of employees. Is it the same message that's coming across? Are they giving the same passion behind it? So often even the managers may not buy completely into hey, we're not going to put passwords in emails anymore, knowing that it may be harder to figure out how to get a password over to a new employee. But
you put it in Slack, right?
Yeah, just different way of putting it in play.
Real time. But I think I think about your dilemma and you describing like what it looks like if you were to look downstream at an MSP that's got 3 to 5 employees and like, oh, remember those days. And we had an internal HR meeting today, a virtual one, and we're doing here next week. We're going to have an all staff, and even for our all staff, not everybody's going to be there. And we're at I think 73 employees, 72, 73 employees in 6 countries, 35 states. Like we're to truly be in the same place. So going back to what you said, I envy, I'm sure our internal IT and HR envy, the days when it was the smaller group when we all worked out of the Chicago office. Yeah. But like, I think a lot of stuff happens though in the policy making, policy creation space where it's done in I joke about it because it's really not what I mean, but the ivory tower mindset of like, well, we know we need this policy. Let's create it. What do you think, Mike? Oh, this looks great. Let's give it to everybody and have them sign off on it. And you do, and you realize it's full of holes. Or the training, I've had this happen before. You watch the video training and then you go to fill out the answers for the quiz and you're like, that's not what it said, and the policy doesn't match the video. Like, what do I do? And they're like, just accept it for what it is. It'll be fine. And it's like, until it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, and that goes down to having the policies, the rules that we live by is great, but it's the enforcing them or the governance over them of,
sure.
Yeah, we may write this down and say that it needs to be done. We handed it out the one time, but new employees that, read this a year and a half ago, are they really going to remember all the things that were in there? And then you have to have someone that's going through it and verifying that those things are being done. When they're not being done, you got to have that awkward conversation with the employee of, hey, you weren't supposed to do it this way. This is our policy. Yeah. Make sure you do it right. And I mean, it's tedious. A lot more admin work goes into the stuff we do now versus just the technical work.
Right. The thing about like acceptable use policy creep, right? Yeah. Like what's in your employee handbook today? Well, it's a pretty big binder. So we went to digital so that we could, then print it out and still put it in a 3-ring binder.
Yeah. Well, and it changes so fast. I mean, we see AI tools, a great example for AI acceptable use is we see AI tools coming out every day, and people testing them out or wanting to use them, or even the changes that happen within the AI tools. When we approved Copilot, it was the language model that they were using was technically what we approved, but then they made a change. It's like, do we reevaluate? So to stay up on those is a different issue of concern.
So I have to pause to share this with you. I live in rural Iowa, and I just had thunder that was so loud it shook. Like I literally, it was like my feet were sitting on one of those like massager things. Like It shook the whole building. I couldn't even hear anything that you were saying. Like, it was so loud. And I'm like, is the power going to go out? I think we're okay. Which that also means that lightning hit really, really close.
Really close, yep.
So where I was going to ask the next question before the thunder about moved me out of the room, my question I was going to ask you from a governance standpoint. You've gone through the trust mark, and I was thinking about all the challenges that you have just from a leadership standpoint that smaller companies may not experience or may never experience. I mean, obviously, if you can do it when you're small, you grow into it, you establish the habits that you are now forced to try and create with a much larger group. But it got me thinking of like, what's the journey that we're on where we have that continuous improvement? And I had this asked, I think it might actually have been a conversation you and I were having, is inside the trust mark and inside like CIS top 18, they have these like subtle little notes that say when you're supposed to do something. And one of the things I feel like that we've all been challenged with is we think about policies and we think about security awareness training, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. And they're all kind of lumped into this, do it at the end of the year. And in many cases, the language that even said at the, do it once a year, it said, or as frequently as needed at a minimum once a year. But then you get into some of the stuff that's in there and it says things like, you should do this at least weekly. And you're like, I can't do this monthly. How am I going to do it weekly? Yeah. But when you and I first started talking about those things that were created that way, Those were the words you said, and I don't mean you personally, but a lot of MSPs said that. But as they've moved through programs like CIS Top 18 or the Trustmark, you start to find like there is room to improve the frequency of those things. Are you finding that to be easier now that you've been doing this for a couple of years?
Yes and no. It's easier because I'm finding ways of handing it off. For me, at my level, to go through and look at devices that connected to our network, in the last week, didn't make sense. So things like that can be handed off. Tickets can be automatically created, workflows, stuff to monitor, to make sure it's happening, to make sure that we're being alerted, to make sure it's happening.
So you're just leaning into AI now.
Yeah, I mean, even some of that.
I would think that would save for a lot of. I'm not saying you necessarily, but like the delegation of a task, like, what assets didn't check in last night. That's something that an automation routine could definitely do on your behalf and notify you in Teams when it's like, hey, these 3 assets didn't show up last night. Oh, that's not good.
Yep. That, or I mean, even the technicians using AI to make things like that go quicker. I mean, I get a software report from RMM once a month. I'm not looking through the thousands of lines of everything that's in there. I have a chat set up so that it has all my previous reports. I throw in the new report and say, what changed this month? And I get the condensed version. So, that 30 minute to an hour task now turned into a 5-minute task.
When you basically just summed up TLDR in the AI world is game changer.
It is, but again, so often we don't see technicians adopting or wanting to do that. I don't know if it's a fear of their job or anything like that, but if they're getting stuff done, in minutes compared to what it used to take an hour, they should be excited about that.
Right. So I lied when I said we weren't going to talk about AI. I just wanted to wait for the right way to segue this, because I believe that AI is now more than ever a governance challenge, not a technical challenge. At least the way in which we would use it today. And so I'm curious on your thoughts, because you mentioned this before we got started to record, about how, struggling with employees that just are more or less saying no to using AI. And I can see the skepticism. I see it with other colleagues of mine that are like, well, I want to write it myself. And I'm like, I want to write it myself too, but I'm struggling to think about what I should be writing about. And I need that, maybe it's the TLDR of my own brain. Yeah. And ironically, the more you feed into these bots or these AI tools, the better they are at giving that information right back to you. So like if you record all of your notes and you don't transcribe them, how many people are going to actually go back and listen to the recording?
No one.
But transcription gives me like a to-do list that I might not have seen. It now becomes a part of the directory when I go, hey, I had this conversation on Thursday of last week. There was something in that meeting we talked about. I think it was somebody from Anchor Networks, and it gives me the answer, right? Yeah. Like we can do deep thinking now without having to, clear everything off of our desks, because all of that data is being captured. There is a balancing act, though, and I think this is where the challenges come in, is we still have to do thinking part. And I think if we're not careful, you can get into, I didn't think, I basically am contributing to the Snopes factor because I didn't check what, the tool sent back my way.
Yeah, no, it is. And like, honestly, I don't want to get letters written to me about this comment, but I honestly think it's the fault of the schools and where we've placed certain type of training on certain things. Like with schools, they're so focused on not using it rather than the proper use of it. If we start early enough and having people understand that it's not something that you just put in and accept for what it is, but it's a tool to help you get closer at a faster rate. That's the mind shift, is like, anything I put into AI, I question, I make sure I double check, but I'm still saving time with the things that I do. And I think that, I agree. People have a fear of, well, what if it's the wrong information? Well, then do your due diligence and double check that it's the right information.
Yeah, I mean, I think about where we have an opportunity right now, and just in the ITSP space, of just cutting down on the volume of information that you would have never otherwise read.
Yeah.
So if I think about to your point about getting that letter, I think about the world and it's getting further away than I'd like to admit. But when I was in secondary school, even in elementary, think about how much memorization we did for things that we really don't use a whole lot of anymore. In fact, if I wanted to know something about that, I can have it in this instant. Just thinking about it, it's probably going to show up with a commercial now on my phone telling me how I need to buy something that I'm not really interested in, right? Like, we have to rethink the education. So that brings me to coming full circle back to like security awareness training. Like, how much training do we need to do versus awareness, understanding, like helping them to discern how to gather information that they need, because so much of it they don't necessarily need to learn it, because the evolution is happening so fast that tomorrow they're not experiencing that problem again.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. It's the shift in the type of learning. I mean, the phishing simulations or the, the specific areas of security, it's changing so fast that stuff really doesn't matter. It's the thought process of, well, are you thinking about how this may impact? Is it the thought process of, well, I didn't ask for a quote, why am I getting a quote, versus, well, let me open up and see what the quote is. So things are always changing. How, it's not a domain that you need to look at anymore. It's not the typos, especially with AI, that you look for. So it's the shift in the type of training. It's the, not even sure how to say it. Like it's the critical thinking training that needs to happen.
Well, and I think that's maybe, and this obviously is way outside of my swim lane when it gets into like, the theology, philosophy, skepticism. I don't have my PhD in education, but part of me says that we may be failing the current students who are basically living on their devices. They're leveraging things like ChatGPT, fill in the blank, but the schooling is not teaching them how to have the analytical and creative thinking around how to solve big problems. Like, if we're hoping for the AIs of the world to solve cancer problems, I think we're going to find ourselves sorely mistaken, because it is only as good as what we feed into it.
Yep. Yeah. And then that again, seeing the issue at that level bleeds into the employees that we're hiring, the kids coming out of school, and entering the workforce. And it's the same mentality of, right now, like so often I have new employees that are just, well, where's that documented? Well, it's not. You got to use your own thought process on getting it there. So there's, I don't know, I think we're opening up a different can of worms.
We're moving away from getting it. We're getting further away from ever rebuilding the pyramids on our own accord.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying you don't hire engineers? Is that what you're telling me?
No, but I mean the piece is like, it does create the caveat of like, what are you looking for in engineers these days? Like for help desk, like what really matters? Is it someone that can, it used to be like, I loved when I heard people saying, well, I Google, first thing I would do was Google the issue. I know it's not going to give me the step-by-step answer, but it's going to get me, in the right process to start thinking through the problem. I want to hear that with what's your first step? I'm going to throw it into, my AI bot and, have it start feeding me some information that I can start going through different diagnostics. Because techs really shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. It's not the first time the issue's been seen, and utilize the tools that are going to help it. Which
is really a different look at this, right? Because if you think back, 10 10, 15 years, if someone said, hey, I'm having some problems with my system seemingly running slow, the first thing you're probably going to do is go look at, the CPU utilization, what apps are running in memory. You're looking for the anomaly that it's like, oh, you're running an app that's not approved, and this is why. And as soon as you kill the process, it's like, boom, back to normal. But I think the piece that's missing isn't, I like the approach of like shifting away from like, we don't need those traditional models as much anymore because we do have the resources that say, tell me what you would do. And, it's kind of like, well, I captured Mike Stewart's brain from 3 years ago of the 7 times that he had to do this. And it's in the documentation to your tech asking about that. But like, I think it'd be interesting to force, new employees to do something like an escape room. Make them play with Lincoln Logs, force them to build something out of Legos without giving them anything other than what it's supposed to look like when it's done. I think that's the piece I feel that we're really missing today is that even with my own kids, I got one that's like, I don't want anything to do with AI. I got another one that's like, AI helped me, build all of my charts for the guitar so I didn't have to do it by hand.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then I go, what are you doing? He literally had it pulled up on his phone after he created it. He was then using a pen and paper and he was writing it out. I'm like, if you already have it on your phone, why are you writing it? He goes, because if I write it down, he's like, I'll remember it.
Yeah.
Like we don't use paper anymore. Like the art of writing on a physical piece of paper or reading a physical book uses, I think, a different part of our brain than just staring at a screen.
Yep. No, I agree with that. And, I kind of split the difference. I have a electric notebook or, where I can write it. And then even that has AI where it transcribes it. But I agree. I mean, handwriting stuff, it sticks in my mind much better. It gives me, lets me draw stuff to figure out how I want things to map out. Like there is
Sure.
advantage to it, but I agree. Like no one wants to write it down. No one wants to have physical notes because what happens with physical notes? They end up in a drawer or a trash can and lost forever.
I don't know how many times I've left and come back, right? Like I'll leave to digital. I'll use my iPad. I'll use my Remarkable. And then I find myself with a pen and paper writing to-do lists and tasks. And, I've been asked this before, like, do you ever go back and look at them? I'm like, sometimes, like if I write stuff down that I know that I need to like take action on, then they're going to end up in the digital space. They'll end up getting delegated. But more often than not, it's just me. Like it's like the chapters in a DVD for anybody listening that remembers those. But like we don't memorize the DVDs, right? Or we didn't memorize the chapters, but we definitely knew how to use the remote. And as we saw that screen of something that we had watched before, we knew as soon as we got to that chapter, we knew that was the one to click on, or at least pretty darn close. And I think that's the part that's that mental piece. And I think even today, I think AI is even augmenting that, right? Like where you're like, oh man, this morning, and you're like, you just type it in and boom, you've got some sort of like direction on where to go get the rest of the information.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, we did end up talking a lot about AI. I think we have not solved the governance challenges, but we definitely moved it in the right direction. I've been asking everybody as of late, what's a book that you read in 2025 or as we go into 2026 that you've picked up and are working your way through that our listeners should consider reading?
Well, I have to admit, I actually been reading a lot more fiction lately, just to get my mind.
That's
off
okay.
Of some of that
We've had
stuff.
a couple of those.
But no, I mean, and I'm trying to remember the book, but it was the AI leadership. Oh man, you put me on the spot. But it was around AI with leadership.
Okay.
And that had me. The one quote that came out of it that really stuck with me is simply just asking AI, can AI help me with this? Can I can I automate this? Because it goes back to the critical.
Is it by Jeff Woods?
I know if I heard the title, I would.
AI for Leaders.
AI for Leaders, yeah.
The power of AI for business leaders. Or no?
No.
Dang it. So close.
Yeah, the AI-driven leader by Jeff Woods. Yeah.
Yes, okay. I did find it the
AI-driven
first time.
leader, harness AI to make faster, smarter decisions, and that's exactly what it's about. Like not trying to spend hours thinking through process or issues and just having the conversation. I mean, the chat GPT, conversation aspect of it, I use it on my drive home every day, whether it's business or personal, just to talk things through and be able to say things out loud. It helps so much. And I mean, that really is what I hope other people start getting out of it is, the critical thinking, using AI
Yeah.
in ways to make your life easier, more efficient, and to do better work.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I was thinking about I have a high doc, a P1 high doc that has whisper mode, and I've been struggling to get used to whisper mode until the other day. I was practicing with it, and I realized, man, it's literally not just converting what I say into text in real time. It's formatting it so that I can read it as fast as I can read, right? Like, because if I literally just had it, if I was just dictating and it was just putting verbatim on the screen what I said, that's not very useful. I don't speak like I want to read.
No, no, and your mind jumps around, and that's again another advantage to it is your mind jumps through so many different areas, and having something that can consolidate and organize it
Yeah.
helps so much.
You just summed up the problem with the human brain. It doesn't organize things well inside the brain. Like, it's expecting you to leverage things like the pencil or some other digital tool in order to retain it.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, there you have it. For those of you who've been listening, this has been an episode of MSP 1337. Thanks and have a great week.